in finding a way of preserving our principles. I don't want to give up on the freedom of speech. But on the other hand, on beating the Islamists at their game.
Is there room for compromise between principles?
If I want to kill you and behead you, unless you convert to the religion I dictate, what would be the place of compromise? Islamophobia is a made-up word. It's made up by a political movement that wants to exploit and capitalize on white guilt to achieve its end goal, which is the revival of the caliphate. And the revival of the caliphate is to convert all of us into Islam, whether we like it or not. Those of us who refuse to do that, we will surely be beheaded. I'm sure I'm on top.
Well, I would not mind converting, as I myself am an agnostic, so have no faith. Have no established faith.
This Austin University student confidently challenged Ayaan Ali that Islam is peaceful, expecting a round of applause from the audience. But the response he got instead was so devastating it made him realize he might just be wasting his time in college. Because once Ayaan started talking, the easy answers he thought he had didn't feel so easy anymore.
The Native Americans, maybe to a certain extent Black Americans, because multiculturalism comes with exemptions, and it comes with exceptions for the law and affirmative action and a whole constellation of things that at one time, before globalization, before mass immigration, before the challenge of Islamism, these things sounded and seemed to be good and effective and inclusive. That's not the case anymore. So we've got to throw that out.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali is doing what she's known for doing, zooming out and asking uncomfortable questions. Questions like, who are we as societies? What have we been tolerating in the name of being kind? What rules are we bending without really noticing?
Could I just ask a quick follow-up? So it seems that much of what you're saying is that multiculturalism is not working anymore. We need to not do that. But if we got rid of multiculturalism, where would the Jews be? Like, how would that work? And perhaps the answer is that it's multiculturalism for everyone except the Islamists, but that also doesn't sit quite right.
The condemnation of nationalism, when we were reckoning with the lead up to the Holocaust and reflecting on that time, there was that German nationalism of blood and soil, and the Jews were accused of racial impurity. That ethno-nationalism is bad and wrong, and we must continue to condemn that. But that can't be the only aspects of nationalism. There are very positive nationalisms where we have a constitution and the rule of law, and we are all equal before the rule of law. No exceptions, no exemptions.
You see, she's not denying that multiculturalism once had good intentions. She even says that clearly. Back then it made sense. Different groups and different customs were living side by side. Everyone was trying to get along. But now that world doesn't exist anymore.
Now, there is a sentencing committee that is determined to have crime, the exact same crime committed by different individuals. If you're of an ethnic minority, you're going to get leniency. But if you are a white heterosexual male, you're going to get the full extent of that punishment. That is taking a wrecking ball to the system, to the nation state. So what unifies us, what makes me an American? I love America. It's the Constitution. It's what I have in common with you. So I'll say, let's end multiculturalism, let's end diversity and all of that nonsense and insist on our unity as human beings as first, and the constitutions and laws that protect that.
So just to clarify, that would be like allowing Jewish culture to exist, but not using like DEI to raise it above other cultures, and not using DEI to raise any one culture above others, like we're currently doing to some extent.
I think what I'm trying to say is we are multi-ethnic, and we've got multiple identities, but our national identity is one, and it must be one, and it must be treated as one if it is to work. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all these cosmetic, artificial instruments, if you read the literature and the philosophies out of which they come, these are subversive efforts to dismantle the West and Western.
It's unfortunate that mass immigration, globalization, and political Islam has changed the equation. What worked when differences were small doesn't work when the differences come with demands for legal exceptions. And that's the part that makes people uncomfortable because it forces you to admit something might be broken.
We have a merit-based system. And if I just got offered an amazing job, I read through all of the points and I want it, but I came to the conclusion, I can't do it. I don't have the skill set. But I could get it if I only insisted I was black and I was woman and I was this and I was that. That's a DEI. And if you eliminate meritocracy, then what makes this society different from all the other corrupt societies where people get to the top because of who they're related to and who they know and who their blood ties are with? And a society that decides to go down that path of giving positions of power and privilege and so on according to identity, that's a society that's going to not last for long. We wouldn't be able to compete with China. We wouldn't be able to compete with other countries, I'm afraid. So I think maybe we should say, let's learn from Israel. Israel as a nation state, I think it was Dan Senor who wrote that book, Startup Nation. That startup nation is flourishing. I was impressed. I was there last week on Tuesday, and I was impressed by, it was nearly midnight when I came from the airport, and there were young women walking the streets, alone, sometimes in pairs, sometimes more, almost at midnight in Jerusalem. And I remarked on it. I asked the driver, how is that possible? And he said, in Israel, women can walk the streets any time of night or day unaccompanied. They have nothing to fear. That is a nation state that honors the social contract between those who govern and those who are governed. Because the most important function of a government is to keep her citizens safe. And now in Europe and in America, sadly, girls are not safe. And Jews, I just told you, I mean, they're saying there's this impending doom. Our Jewish fellow citizens don't feel safe. That social contract is broken, and we better repair it quickly.
You can almost imagine the student listening, nodding at first because none of this sounds hateful. It sounds practical. Like realizing a system you once liked isn't doing the job anymore. Ayan explains that multiculturalism created loopholes, exemptions, special rules. And those loopholes are being abused by Islamists, not by ordinary people just trying to live their lives, but by organized movements that understand Western guilt better than the West does.
Hi, I wanted to say I loved your jacket, and I also wanted to ask,
Thank you.
are there any lessons from your recent conversion to Christianity that might be applied to the West and the absence of Judeo-Christian values, and how might any lessons there help us combat anti-Semitism?
I get a lot of questions about my conversion to Christianity, and I always think, what if I didn't even exist, let alone convert to Christianity? And I want to insist that the revival of Christianity, as in the teachings of Jesus Christ, the Sermon on the Mount, that those moral imperatives are what the West is built on. And I think it's very important that we revive those, especially for young people. I think the boomers, sorry if there are any boomers here, my criticism of the boomer generation is that they enjoyed the institutions that their forefathers fought for and died for, and then squandered it. And so I think we need a new generation now to revisit those principles and bring them back for the young.
And if I might ask a brief follow-up, as a former flag bearer for the New Atheist movement and as someone who's converted away from Islam, it seems like you are uniquely positioned to address this inflection point, given that, as outlined in your talk, it's these two forces in league with each other that are pushing anti-Semitism forward. So is there anything specifically in your conversion that we can all learn from?
What brought me to Christianity was I was brought low. It was a sense of humility. And one of my big beefs with my fellow atheists back then was we nurtured a sense of great arrogance. We thought we knew everything, and we had a disdain for people who believed and a disdain for the biblical legacy. And we thought that history started, let me speak for myself, history started with the Enlightenment. And I have come to realize that put your humble foot first before you condemn the principles and beliefs of others.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to reiterate the thanks for your time here.
You know how people get angry when they feel pushed out of their own space? When their kids' schools change overnight? When speaking up gets them labeled as racist? The thing is, when working-class communities complain, they're instantly dismissed. And once that happens, trust collapses. This is the part where a student walks up to the mic with a very controversial claim about Islamic terrorism.
The thanks for your time here at the University of Austin. What I wanted to ask you was, you speak of Islamophobia and classes like Black Studies as phony ideological things, but I was curious as to what makes them different. What makes white supremacy different, or like Islamophobia so different from anti-Semitism, as there, we did import many African slaves that died in the millions, and so did South American countries even more so. We did force Native Americans on forced marches and genocide. There are Muslims being massacred in China today. So what makes anti-Semitism so different?
Two things. One is we have reckoned in America and in Western European countries, we've had a great reckoning with our past. We've addressed the fact that we engaged in slavery, we fought a war, we ended it. We had segregation, we had another major fight, we ended it. We had the civil rights movement. We brought women out of, and by the way, in fighting for all of those emancipations, the people who were heading these fights were constantly quoting from the Bible. They were believing Christians and they were inspired by their Christianity. So number one, we had that reckoning. Number two, anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred in humanity, and you find it, believe it or not, across the entire world. What made the West different after they nearly exterminated their Jews was to have that honest look in the mirror and reckon with what they did. And then those campaigns to end it. Islamophobia is a made-up word. It's made up by a political movement that wants to exploit and capitalize on white guilt to achieve its end goal, which is the revival of the caliphate. And the revival of the caliphate is to convert all of us into Islam, whether we like it or not. Those of us who refuse to do that, we will surely be beheaded.
The student's original claim loses grounds the moment Ayan says the real fight is cultural and psychological. Now let's see how they're going to take it when she switches camp to Islamophobia.
I think these Western, part of subversion, this is just a guest speech, but I wish that at some point someone here could start a lecture series on subversion, on active measures, on asymmetric warfare. That would get you interested in what it is that the Islamists are doing and how they've become so successful against these great nations with this incredible military and economic structures, and yet the Islamists are winning. Islam is spreading. They're doing better today than they were doing in 2001 after they hit us and we invaded Afghanistan. They've got Afghanistan back. They have Iraq back. They have Syria. And these Muslim governments are they're shaking in their boots. They're worried about what could happen to them because of the Islamist movement, and that's why the Islamist movement came here. And they're exploiting principles like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and so on. And of course, these progressive movements that we have here, we've got to understand that, and we've got to become really creative in finding a way of preserving our principles. I don't want to give up on the freedom of speech. But on the other hand, on beating the Islamists at their game.
Is there room for compromise between principles?
If I want to kill you and behead you, unless you convert to the religion I dictate, what would be the place of compromise?
Before we get to that student's alarming answer to Ayan's question, let's look at this really quick. It's true the word Islamophobia itself is being weaponized. It's become something used to shut down debates. It's treated like anti-Semitism, even though the histories are completely different. The fact is, Islam isn't an ethnicity, Muslims aren't a tiny powerless group worldwide, and there has never been a Holocaust against Muslims. These are facts people rarely say out loud, especially in university settings. Now let's see what the student said next.
Well, I would not mind converting, as I myself am an agnostic, so have no faith. Have no established faith. However, I understand that some people would not share that vision, so.
Even with the manufactured smile on his face and the perky answer he gave, you can almost feel the student thinking, wait, I've never heard it put that way before. The thing is, that idea sounds old-fashioned but also strangely refreshing. Her example about sentencing and how different groups receiving different outcomes for the same crime damages trust as apartment. You don't need to agree with her to understand the point. If the rules feel unfair, people stop believing in them. And once that happens, the whole system starts to wobble.
Let's play with this thought for a while. There's a time and a place for everything. And for some of the people, say in places like Africa, we don't talk about this, but Islamists are active in Africa and violently so. If you're a Christian in Egypt or a Hindu in parts of Pakistan, and you have someone looking at you and saying, you'll either lose your head or you convert to Islam, it makes sense to consider converting to Islam. But here today, for us to have the attitude of, well, we'll see what happens, and if we get to that point, I'll just convert, I will say, are you sure?
You know that awkward feeling when you realize a shortcut exists, but taking it would rot the system long-term? That's what she's pointing at.
You want to get educated on what would happen once you convert. What would your life be like, and the life of your sisters and women? What would they do to the Jews? He has said, this man, I repeat it, he said they're bacteria and they're microbes. And in the video that I showed you, they made it very clear it has nothing to do with Palestine. It has everything to do with them being Jewish. So they are going to annihilate the Jews. Will you stand by and watch that? Maybe I should give Introduction to Islam and Islamism as a lecture series, and once you understand what it's all about, you might develop a backbone.
I would look forward to that greatly. Thank you very much.
The student started with, Islam is peaceful, but you can tell his certainty slipping even as he stands there grinning. You see, debates like this aren't really about winning. They make you realize how thin some of our most repeated phrases actually are. And for that student, whether they admit it or not, the conversation probably didn't end when the applause did. It followed them home. And those are the exchanges that really change people. What do you think? Is Islam truly a religion of peace? We'd like to have your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.